Now let's recap our reactions to the main movies on this show. Lots of disagreement this week. I enjoyed the brainwave thriller Scanners, but Roger didn't care about the characters, and that's why there's a yes next to my name and a no next to Roger's. He can't recommend you see it. I can. Scanners is rated R for good reason. It's very violent. We agree that Francois Truffaut's The Green Room is a minor film, but a worthy one, a worthy mood piece about one man's obsession with death. 2 yes votes for that. We split on The Mirror Cracked. I think Elizabeth Taylor's performance overshadows a less than thrilling mystery. Roger disagrees. He thinks the whole movie took itself too seriously. And a big disagreement on Altered States. Roger thinks that it's an exhilarating, mind-bending trip. I find it full of flash, but empty of ideas.
Well, I did like Altered States, and I think on this show that's the movie that I stand behind and I like the most. I'd recommend it. I think it's a good film.
And for me, it's Scanners, also in the science fiction area, a lot cheaper than Altered States, but that story got me involved. Altered States did not.
So we still have a disagreement,
okay.
Right? Okay, that's it for this week. Lily Tomlin starred as the Incredible Shrinking Woman, a movie we both vote no on. Gene thought it was dumb and disappointing. I didn't think it was good either, but it might appeal to young audiences. Both Gene and I also voted no on Fort Apache, The Bronx, the new Paul Newman picture with an old-fashioned and incomprehensible storyline. We split, though, on The Devil and Max Devlin, the new Disney picture. Gene liked it and thought it showed some imagination and humor. I thought it was boring and predictable. 2 big yes votes, though, for Melvin and Howard, the wonderful slice of American life about a gas station attendant who almost becomes a millionaire. And finally, 2 no votes for Hangar 18, a ridiculous movie about flying saucers that leaves you asking this question: is there anything more interesting happening in the other 17 hangars?
I wish I said that.
Eyewitness is the new thriller starring William Hurt as a janitor and Sigourney Weaver as a TV reporter. I thought it was great. The thriller is character study. Gene liked the characters but thought the story they were in was ridiculous. I recommend you see it. Gene cannot. 2 big yes votes, though, for Roman Polanski's Tess, starring Nastasia Kinski as Thomas Hardy's doomed and courageous heroine. We both thought it was fascinating filmmaking. 2 more yes votes for The Competition. Although it has some big flaws, we both like the romance and competitive spirit of its story about an international piano contest. The Dogs of War starred Christopher Walken as a mercenary soldier fighting in Africa. I vote yes. I thought it started out as a superior action movie and had some serious undertones. Gene liked the movie's profile of a mercenary soldier, but we both found the climatic action scenes very routine, and Gene votes no.
Well, I think the film that we're coming out in favor of the most is Roman Polanski's Tess, and I think it's important to me that this film do well. Otherwise, it's sort of an adult kind of story. I think otherwise we're going to be just swamped with teenage violent films.
I hope not. We both liked The Competition, too, with reservations. I liked all 4 films on this show, but gee, you know, the one I would go out into the raging storm to see again would be Roman Polanski's Tess.
Or even in the sunshine, depending where you live, okay?
Why not?
Sunday Lovers was the desperately uneven, mostly unfunny anthology film about 4 offbeat lovers. 2 strong no votes for that one. Falling in Love Again was the corny, nostalgic story about growing up in the 1940s. I had a certain affection for the movie, but Gene reviles it. Neither of us can recommend it. 2 more no votes. We were both disgusted by My Bloody Valentine, the latest mad slasher movie named after a holiday. Another 2 no votes for that one. We both have reservations about Francois Truffaut's The Last Metro. For me, as a bittersweet drama about life in the theater, it's fine, but as a serious consideration of occupied France during World War II, it's superficial. Gene has other problems with it, but still, 2 yes votes with some qualifications.
Yes, the drama of it is very strong and it is very appealing. It's only in the end, in the serious consideration, I think that we both feel let down.
We disagreed on 3 out of the 5 films. I thought that Tribute with Jack Lemmon often was an overwrought, smarmy melodrama. Roger was touched by Jack Lemmon's character. I say no, Roger says yes. He recommends you see Tribute. We split on Cage Aux Folles II, the French comedy about homosexuals. This time I was thoroughly entertained by the lead performances, but Roger thought the film was an insulting, limp-wristed, laughless comedy. He votes no, I recommend it. 2 strong no votes for Charlie Chan and The Curse of the Dragon Queen, a very stupid parody of the old Charlie Chan movies. We split a little bit on American Pop. We both acknowledge the film's innovative animation, but I find fault with the way it tells its story. Roger votes yes, I say no. And 2 very enthusiastic yes votes for the remarkable documentary film The Day After Trinity, the story of the development of the atomic bomb. Out of all the films on this show, The Day After Trinity receives our highest recommendation.
That's for sure, and usually with documentaries it's kind of hard to find them, but this one, because it got an Oscar nomination, is playing around the country for the next month, and on April the 29th it's scheduled to appear right here on PBS.
Both Roger and I thought that Back Roads was a ridiculous comic love story with featherweight characters played by Sally Field and Tommy Lee Jones. 2 no votes for that. And 2 no votes for All Night Long, the Gene Hackman, Barbra Streisand romantic comedy that dissolves into trivial slapstick after promising to be an interesting investigation of the midlife crisis. 2 more no votes for The Postman Always Rings Twice, with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange in an unsatisfactory, meandering adaptation of the exciting James M. Cain book. We split on Private Eyes, with Don Knotts and Tim Conway as a couple of bumbling detectives. I think it is delightful fare for children. Roger thought it was simply stupid. He says no, I say yes. And finally, 2 no votes for Galaxina, the outer space comedy. Although it has a cute couple of gags in the beginning, its adventure story is as empty as outer space.
The movie is truly lost in space. Thief stars James Caan in the portrait of a professional robber. It's rated R because of its violence and rough language, but we both think it's an exciting, intelligent thriller, so 2 yes votes for Thief. We both recommend that you see it. The final conflict brings an end to the Omen trilogy, and none too soon. 2 big no votes against Armageddon. But 2 enthusiastic yes votes for The Trials of Alger Hiss, a spellbinding documentary about a controversial chapter in American history. And finally, Rockshow, the documentary of a concert by Paul McCartney and Wings. We like the music, but we're disappointed that the film is limited to music and nothing else, so 2 reluctant no votes for Rockshow.
Well, looking over the movies on this show, I think one question might be, why do we review something like The Trials of Alger Hiss, a film that's obviously going to be little seen around the country? I think our goal is, 1, we've seen it, we like it, 2, by exposing it on this show, we hope we can bring it around the country. It's already played in New York City, we both know that, but let's see if we can get it around elsewhere in the nation.
We get letters from time to time from people who run 16mm film groups in various cities and on college campuses. I think this would be a good one for them to show. And of the major movies on the show, I think the one that we like the best is James Caan in Thief. It's a real good, intelligent thriller.
But not so much for Caan's performance, I think it's for what you mentioned right at the beginning of your review, which is that the film shows us this high-class thief world and seems to be real. It's not the smash-and-grab kind of burglar. This film is about the, you know, so-called evil genius, and I think its feeling for that world is very special.
So it has a real good authority over its subject matter and also over its tone. It really winds up a lot of anxiety. It's very entertaining.
I agree.
We disagreed on Nighthawks, the new Sylvester Stallone thriller. Gene got involved in the showdown with a terrorist. I thought he was a terrorist without a cause. We both voted yes, though, on Modern Romance, the new comedy starring Albert Brooks and Katherine Harold, with an on-again, off-again, maybe-again romance. We both recommend it highly. 2 disappointed no votes, though, on Excalibur. We like the look of the movie much more than its characters and story. 2 great big no votes on Heaven's Gate, the confusing, aimless, and extremely dusty Western by Michael Cimino. And finally, 2 wholehearted recommendations for Napoleon, a 1927 movie that's currently on national tour with an orchestra conducted by Carmine Coppola. This is a once-in-a-lifetime movie-going experience, and I think it's probably suitable for the whole family, let's say from about age 10 on up.
I agree. The film is moving around the country. It's scheduled for Atlanta, San Antonio, New Orleans, Los Angeles, probably plays San Francisco, and many other cities, I think. It's proving to be a big hit. The ticket prices are stiff, up to $25, $10 to $25.
It's worth it.
I think it is worth it, too. We both hated the Jerry Lewis comedy, Hardly Working, creaky old gags, and ugly filmmaking. We can't recommend you see it. We split on the werewolf film, The Howling. I found it to be an entertaining and genuinely scary thriller. I say yes, go see it. Roger liked the special effects, but he wasn't scared. He says no. We also split on Breaker Morant, the story of a famous Australian court-martial. I was struck by the strength of the performances and the direct confrontation of a very real political and moral problem. Roger admired it too, but felt this kind of story had been handled better in other films, and he votes no. We both praise Alain René's French film Mon Oncle D'Amérique, a study of the modern pressures that overload primitive brains. Ours. 2 strong yes votes for that one. Finally, neither one of us can recommend Caveman, the parody of prehistoric adventure films. We love the dinosaur more than the humans, but we both say no. Too many dumb gags.
So I guess the one we agree on most strongly is Mon Oncle D'Amérique,
exactly.
The French film. And like a lot of films we've liked recently, this is one that doesn't play in dozens of theaters at once. You kind of have to go look for it.
The other thing that I want to stress about it, I've read some reviews that say it's a difficult film to understand. And I think that actually people who write that are underestimating the audience. I think this film presents a very provocative, sophisticated idea, but does it quite directly in a fresh and exciting way. I really recommend it wholeheartedly.
I didn't think it was that difficult either, but it was very provocative in terms of inspiring discussions afterwards.
Exactly.
Great to argue about. And that's it for this week.
Both Roger and I admired Lion of the Desert, the adventure film pitting Anthony Quinn against Oliver Reed. The yes next to both of our names means that yes, we can recommend you go see it. We split on Tell Me a Riddle, the drama about growing old. Roger found it an interesting character study with good acting. He says yes. But we both agree there is too much pain and suffering, and that's at least why I can't recommend it. We agree that Windwalker is a special kind of adventure film with great nature footage and a fresh, authentic portrait of the American Indian. This is a good film for the whole family. And we both hated Friday the 13th Part 2, another movie about a mad slasher with a knife, a hatchet, and a machete.
So it'd be an understatement to say that we both hated Friday the 13th Part 2.
Right.
We were both surprised by Lion of the Desert, and we were both very pleasantly surprised by Windwalker.
Yeah, of the whole group, I think I would take a chance first on Windwalker. That film, it reminded me of pictures that I saw as a kid, grand adventure films set in the West, American Indians, a fresh portrayal, though, of Indians, and I'd recommend that for people.
Okay, in Lion of the Desert, you know, there are a lot of people who like big military epics, but they're a lot harder to make well than you would think. You think we'll just rent a lot of tanks, get a lot of extras, but you have to make it intelligible on some sort of a human scale, and I think Lion of the Desert did a good job of that.
One of the things that I thought of while I was watching this picture was Heaven's Gate, the late lamented Western that cost so much money and failed so miserably to be a grand-scale adventure. And here's this film, made by somebody who hasn't made a lot of pictures. I think he just made one other film. And this film really worked in a big-scale way.
He's able to marshal thousands of extras and still make it a film that we can follow and identify with and understand.
Exactly.
Right? I think this is the first program in about 2 years where we both agreed that we liked all of the movies on the show.
Right.
We both admired 4 Seasons, the Alan Alda comedy about middle age, marriage, and friendship. 2 big yes votes for that one. We both recommend you see it. Busting Loose starred Richard Pryor in the story of a bus driver on probation saddled with 8 untamed kids, and although we both had some reservations about the very predictable storyline, we recommend it too. This is Elvis is the documentary about Elvis Presley's rise to stardom and then his self-destruction. We both found it entertaining, fascinating, and finally pretty harrowing. And 2 more very strong yes votes for Louis Malle's Atlantic City, the bittersweet comedy starring Burt Lancaster and Susan Sarandon and the story of some offbeat characters in a casino boomtown. And you know, Gene, we already just talked about Atlantic City. I like it so much. There are 3 lines in it that I really love. One is, teach me stuff. One is, I don't believe in gravity. And then, don't touch the suit.
That's a good one. I agree. And I think it's also the best film on this list.
Yes,
that's the one I'd see first of all of these pictures. Roger and I agree that The Legend of the Lone Ranger is a total waste of time. A bad Western and a bad children's film, needlessly violent. 2 strong no votes from us. Neither one of us can recommend you see it. 2 no votes also for Death Hunt, a deadly dull adventure film with Charles Bronson being chased all over Canada. Bronson and Marvin are just fine in this movie, but the bad guys and all the supporting characters are just ridiculous caricatures. We split on Take This Job and Shove It, the brewery workers' revolt movie. Roger thought this was a slow-paced, witless failure. He says no. I thought it was much, much better than that, especially Robert Hayes, who's excellent in the film. I say yes. And we also split on Outland, you may recall, the space adventure film, High Noon in a Spacesuit with Sean Connery. Roger enjoyed the adventure in Sean Connery. He says yes. I like Connery too, but I thought the bad guys were laughable. I vote no.
Well, so much for this week. Next time on Sneak Previews, we'll take a look at Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams, the new sex and drugs comedy. I Sent a Letter to My Love with Simone Signoret as a woman who carries on a secret romance with her brother, and History of the World Part 1, the new musical comedy by Mel Brooks. Until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Funding for Sneak Previews was provided by this station and by other public television stations.